Hello, my name is Paul Jones, author of Concerning a Nation and several videos on Bible prophecy. As I said in my other video about US presidents and Israel, most of them have been pretty much well disposed to her while not really understanding the divine mission of America. However, there is more we can say on this subject. President Carter was the first president to invest personal time and energy in Middle East peace plans. Now, obviously, all US presidents have been involved with Israel since the great Truman, who recognized her and supported the return of the Jews. This is common knowledge. Eisenhower forced Israel, France and Britain to cease and desist from their invasion of the Sinai and the Suez Canal in 1956. And I would like to remind you, by the way, that the Sinai Peninsula does not belong to Israel, unlike the rest of the sacred land which God gave to Abraham, and that includes Gilead on the east bank, which Moses gave to them. Kennedy was shot before he could force Israel to abandon her nuclear weapons program at Dimona. Johnson and Nixon, both very pro-Israel, heavily supported her with armaments. Many will also remember Kissinger's famous shuttle diplomacy after the 1973 Yom Kippur War and the oil embargo of the same year. But these were not peace plans as such. Operating within the context of the Cold War, Nixon and Kissinger's purpose was to get the oil flowing, to force a ceasefire, to prevent the Israelis from destroying the Egyptian army, which would have humiliated them, and to prevent the Soviet Union from capitalizing on the turmoil. When Nixon resigned, Ford continued to pressure Israel to return the Sinai. And that takes us to Carter. Why was Carter's involvement so different? When Anwar Sadat of Egypt realized that his country could no longer afford war, he knew he had to make peace with Israel. Sadat also knew that he had to make a public display of wanting a solution for the Palestinians. But in fact, he knew there was no hope of an Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank. He wanted the Sinai back, and he wanted peace and American aid. He travelled to Israel in 1977 to speak to the Knesset and laid the basis for an agreement between Egypt and Israel. He later paid for this with his life. The new Israeli Prime Minister was the former terrorist Menachem Begin, a stubborn and intractable man. His trip to Egypt was less successful. Now, so far, it had been a bilateral negotiation, but Jimmy Carter thought he could get more if he got involved. He wanted a comprehensive agreement. Despite being a born-again Christian, he didn't seem to believe that the land belonged to the children of Israel. Carter's Camp David meetings were an attempt to get the Palestinian issue solved. Carter was against traditional US policy, which was basically to sideline the Palestinians. Now here is the amazing thing. The unlovely Menachem Begin was the first Israeli leader who was prepared to accept that there was a Palestinian issue rather than just war with Arab states. And this is where the trouble starts, because if there is a Palestinian issue, you solve it with land. And the Palestinians cannot have land because that would be a division of the Holy Land. And any peace initiative which involves any division of the land is a blasphemy with which the Lord will take very great issue, regardless of success or failure, or should I say, inevitable failure. As Dov Waxman pointed out in his book on the conflict, Camp David introduced the concept of land for peace, and it never left. Carter was destroyed by the Iranian crisis. He was succeeded by Reagan, who said that the Palestinians should have some sort of homeland. In 1982, after the upheavals in the Lebanon, the Reagan administration unveiled a peace plan. I won't go into too much detail about this, except to say that with the PLO expelled from the Lebanon, the US, taking the Camp David Accords as their basis, turned attention to the Palestinian issue. And so it goes on. All subsequent presidents now accepted that in any peace plan the Palestinians were the central issue. Carter, Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, and now Trump. 7 presidents who have devised or encouraged plans to divide the land. Now, as I've stated elsewhere, Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority announced that he would drop his preconditions for talks with the Israelis on May the 11th and 12th, 2017. Two very significant dates. Why? Bear with me. There was at the time excited talk on Israeli news of he and Netanyahu going to the White House together. Trump was going to issue the invitations any day soon. It was eagerly anticipated. Of course, it all came to nothing. Now, if you've read my book, you will know that this is a mirror image of the attempted agreement right at the beginning of the Aliyah in 1879 between Britain and the Ottoman Empire, which also came to nothing. But we can't go into that here. So how do we get those dates? Some people got very excited when the American embassy was relocated to Jerusalem, but that was on Israel's conventional 70th birthday. As you should know, if you're involved with Bible prophecy, God's timelines for Israel are measured in prophetic years of 360 days. After the United States took over from Britain, who had reneged on her sacred duty to oversee the Aliyah, she too had 70 prophetic years, 25,200 days from the recreation of Israel, before she too would be humbled. May 2017. 2017, incidentally, was the worst year in US history for disasters, not all of them natural. We are now past that date of May the 11th and 12th, and America is in deep trouble. But according to the false prophets of the charismatic churches, these traumas are just the birthing pains of a great new Christian order under St. Donald Trump. Expectations of the rapture and the end times, originally spurred by the appearance of Israel, have now been replaced by this belief in great Christian victories to come. It's called dominion theology. The devil has provided a convenient excuse for the inevitable upheavals of this uncertain time. I'm sorry to say it, but I think you may be very disappointed. 7 presidents, 7 successive blasphemies, and Trump's peace and prosperity plan, differing only from the others in the boastful extravagance of its promises, is the final affront to God. Truman was a humble man, a bit rough around the edges, but a good man. He made no money from the presidency and was never rich. It's been a long, long road down from Truman to Trump, and now we are at the bottom. Where do we go from here? It's a sad fact of human nature that people believe what they want to believe. But if this message has spoken to you, I'd refer you to Revelation 3. Read about the Laodicean church and ask yourself if you've become a member of that final church, and then pray. Thank you for watching, and God bless you all. Please read my book Concerning a Nation, published by Lulu. Thank you again.